Today on Ian vs. Daddybones, we're talking about Mossman.
Oh boy, kids, we're gonna have fun today.
Yay! Hey! Alright!
How is everyone doing tonight?
Hey! Alright!
How is everyone doing tonight?
Hey! Alright!
How is everyone doing tonight?
Hey! Alright!
Epic roast.
Welcome back! It's another exciting episode of Ian vs. Daddybones. I am Ian Daddybones. I'd like to welcome everybody to the show. Say what's up to everybody subscribed over on YouTube right now. Say hey to everybody watching on Facebook right now. But give a special high five and a knuck tap to all my Patreon subscribers, throwing me $1 to $5 a month for bonus content, getting your names in the credits. And if you level up, you get access to the Original Geeks podcast. And here we are, motherfuckers. We are officially kicking off September, which means we are officially at the end of our summer for 2023. Now for me, I am super fucking excited because A, we are in September, which means I get to kick these fucking kids out of the house and say, get your ass back to fucking school. I don't want to see you until 3 in the afternoon. But, now, besides getting the kids back to school, Masters of the Universe Origins is officially starting to roll out everything that's been announced so far for this year. Couple episodes back, well, not a couple episodes, it's a little back. Basically, during the winter, I did an episode of the show where I talked about Masters of the Universe Origins and Masterverse announcements that Mattel made, I believe, January, and they made a whole graphic with a list of figures and accessories and vehicles and whatnot that are coming out, play sets, and I ran through the list a couple of months ago, episodes back, talking about everything that has since been pre-ordered, and I've just been waiting for this stuff to slowly trickle in. A couple episodes back recently, on the table, basically, if you go back in June, some of the stuff started to roll in. Like, I got my Snake Face, and I got fucking Slamurai, I got my Point Dread and the Talon Fighter. So basically, I got wave 13 and 14 figures I'm waiting to come in. Snake Mountain is about to drop. Snake Mountain was scheduled to be released August 2023. We're in September. It hasn't come out yet. So it's going to be coming out at this point this month, September 2023. I'm just waiting for that email to arrive for my pre-order distributor letting me know, hey, the item that you pre-ordered is set to arrive soon. Just want to give you a heads up. And then I'll be super fucking excited. And I can officially say another major announcement I could unveil. Can't do it at the moment, but I can let you know that it's coming. And the announcement that's coming is when I started Ian vs. Daddybones at the tail end of October last year, and I announced the Patreon. One of the main focuses of launching the Patreon, I wanted to create a Patreon for Ian vs. Daddybones because I knew over the course of the past year, as I put out weekly episodes for y'all to watch, I got bonus content and videos that I put up on the Patreon. You know what I mean? I brought back the Original Geeks podcast, which is exclusively on the Patreon. So basically, everything that's archived in the library that I've built on the Patreon, as far as bonus content goes, that shit has been growing over the past year. So, like, for everybody who's been subscribed to the Patreon since the very beginning of the show, y'all have been watching me stack my content on a week-to-week basis going forward. But for anybody new watching the show right now who may decide, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to spend $1 and give this guy a fucking opportunity. if you click on the Patreon right now, you're going to see the whole list and archive of everything I've done over the past year, which means it's good because going forward, we got so much more shit coming out. But what I'm getting at is, in the beginning, when it was being created and I was ready to launch the Patreon, one of the things I did last year was I decided to participate in Mattel's crowdfund for the Masters of the Universe Eternia playset. Now, I am a humble motherfucker. I work very hard for every dime I make and for every outgoing dime that's going to pay a bill, handle responsibilities, put food in my house for my kids. And this isn't counting perks and extras, you know what I mean? Clothes, fucking, if I decide to take my kids to the movies, or if my daughter gets makeup, or if my son gets a fucking Steam card to download a video game, you know what I mean? Responsibilities first, extras later. So, we're very, we don't live beyond our means. We handle business, we live accordingly based on what we can afford. So when they announced that they're doing a crowdfund for a $550 crowdfund for a playset that originally came out in 1986, that originally retailed for $100, now they want $550 for it. I mean, that's fucking PlayStation 5 money. And the thing is, I never had the $550 in full to participate in the crowdfund for Eternia. What I was able to do was I was able to use the shop payment method to finance Eternia. So basically, ever since the first episode of Ian vs. Daddybones, ever since the Patreon launched, I have been crowdfunding Eternia. Now, this isn't a secret by any means. It's not like I'm hiding anything. I mean, for Christ's sakes, nothing's changed with the appearance of the Patreon since it launched. So if you go to patreon.com/Ian vs. Daddybones right now, you're going to see the layout of the page as it shows everything, from the way it was set up, including that our goal was to recoup expenses for crowdfunding Eternia. So basically, every Patreon dollar that I have been earning on this show has been thrown back into the building of the brand and leveling up Ian versus Daddybones. You know what I mean? My Patreon subscribers, their freaking contributions to the brand have helped me upgrade my terabyte, to a day. I was able to upgrade my external hard drive. I now got a 2 terabyte external hard drive that I basically dump all my footage on when I get home from filming the show. Patreon dollars have upgraded my ring light that's illuminating me right now. My Patreon subscribers have helped me upgrade these color light LEDs on the sides, you know what I mean? So everything's been going back into the show, and at the same time, whether I got pre-orders about to arrive, show up, Patreon's definitely come through in a clutch. So thank you very much to all of you supporting my bullshit and helping me build the brand. So basically, long story short, I got Eternia down to the final $98, and I am saying, fuck it, I'm done with the payments, and I'm just going to pay this shit off and be done with it, because I got some other stuff I got to take care of during September and October to prepare for winter. And so I'm about to pay fucking Eternia off, so mission accomplished. I am very fucking excited about this, and I will let y'all know when it's officially paid off, because I will be doing an Eternia celebration bonus episode for Patreon subscribers. And also too, just for the hell of it, when you go to the patreon.com/Ian vs. Daddybones, you'll also see the Mattel Creations crowdfund video for this whole experience. Mattel, that when it came down to the final week of the crowdfund, Mattel put out this video where it was like a 45-minute long commercial just showing off how badass this fucking playset is and what it meant to Masters of the Universe. And I'm just going to say from personal experience, considering I'm about to pay this off. So yeah, basically, rewinding real quick. I didn't have the lump sum in order to grab Eternia in one shot. I was able to finance it, split it up over the course of the year, 12 monthly payments, and between Patreon dollars, not to mention me making the regular payments, the Patreon subscribers definitely did their fair share of assisting with the Eternia payments over the course of the past year when I wasn't using the Patreon money and throwing it in other directions in order to level up and build the brand. So to everybody involved without even knowing it, unless you're subscribed to the brand, and that includes everybody whose name is listed in the end credits of every episode of the show. And honestly, I don't care if you subscribe to the Patreon for 1 month, if you stuck around with me for the whole first year, or you've only done 2 months or whatever the fuck. I ain't taking people's names out of the credits. Y'all fucking earn that shit just for supporting the brand. So thank you very much to everybody listed in the end credits of the show, because you have definitely helped me level up, build the brand, and achieve this goal of paying off Eternia. And it's going to be fucking sick when that shit drops March of next year. But today's episode of the show is going to be a lot of fun, because today's episode of the show, I'm going to be talking about a classic Masters of the Universe character from the vintage line, the old Filmation cartoon, mini comics, magazines. Today we're going to be talking about fucking Moss Man. And I could finally do an episode on Moss Man, because now I have 2 of them unopened to discuss and talk about. Because what I like doing when it comes to Ian versus Daddybones, and especially with the way I plan out my episodes, and you know, a question I've been asked is, how do you decide what you're going to talk about on each episode of the show? Basically, it just comes down to, you know, everything about the brand that I love, which is like the main ingredient in every show. But for basic simple math, I like going through figures that I haven't opened yet in Masterverse, as well as their counterparts and origins who haven't come out yet, or figures that I'm still waiting on. You know, like fucking trying to think here, because it's weird. I'm trying to pull an example that I've done on the show, but like Evil Lynn, the Mother's Day special that's currently available on the Patreon for your viewing pleasure. You know, there's 3 Evil Lynn figures. So instead of doing like an episode on the one Evil Lynn and another episode on the other Evil Lynn, it made sense for me to do all 3 Evil Lynns, because I had 2 Evil Lynn figures and the Mattel Creations Dark Lynn, God Lynn figure that happened to come out right at the perfect time. So when I had all 3 of those Evil Lynn figures, it made sense to do her for the Mother's Day episode. Kind of like doing Man-at-Arms around Father's Day, because I had the Wave 2 Masterverse Classic Man-at-Arms, and then I had the recently released Deluxe Man-at-Arms. So you got the classic look for Duncan, and then you had his present day look as Old Man Duncan, basically before his banishment, after his banishment. So that's basically where I'm at. That's another reason why I haven't done Spikor yet, because Spikor was a character that got released in Masterverse, even though he's a vintage character from the classic toy line who hasn't gotten an Origins figure, even though I currently have Spikor pre-ordered. So at some point in like October, November, whatever the fuck, maybe even December, that's when you're going to get your Spikor episode, because I'm waiting for the stars to unline, I'm waiting for figures to drop. So here's where we are with fucking Moss Man, because Moss Man, and I'll start with the classic, with the Masters of the Universe Moss Man. This Moss Man figure was originally announced this past winter. He was among the list of figures and everything that Mattel dropped as far as their spring, summer, fall releases for 2023. And when Mossman was revealed, announced, shown off, they made it clear that Origins Mossman was going to be exclusive and only available in Walmart. So, as a buyer of Masters of the Universe Origins, I'm getting kind of nervous. I'm getting nervous because I know that in the 2.5 years that I've been buying these figures and supporting these lines, you got Target retail, Walmart retail, but then you also have Big Lots retail, Ollie's retail, and distribution has never been the greatest when it comes to actual on-shelf retail with Masters of the Universe Origins. And I'm not saying Masterverse because, for example, I've had better luck finding everything and anything for the most part Masterverse in the wild at Target, especially the deluxe figures in my area. They have not been an issue. Some single peg figures I have not been able to see. I have not seen. But I do remember that when Masterverse was new. But yeah, I remember seeing the figures when they were new in stores, when I wasn't interested at the time in buying Masterverse, because it's one of those type of things where when Ian Daddybones out of nowhere starts buying He-Man toys, eventually my wife's going to pick up on this and be like, what's going on with all this? What are you doing? I'm going to start buying He-Man figures, but the good news is, I'm going to stop drinking. So guess what? No more beer. I'm going to turn it into toys. Why drink beer when I got to pee it out and I got to buy He-Man toys and they could be worth money someday? Woo! So I had to sell her at first on, it's okay, what's a few figures, you know what I mean? I'm just going to get one, just going to get two, you know what I mean? Eventually they're going to get bored of each other, they're going to need friends, and we all seen the memes. So, next thing you know, I'm buying Masters of the Universe Origins. So, distribution hasn't always been great. You know what I mean? With the line. Especially with the pandemic. The COVID-19 and the pandemic, as far as, quarantines, restrictions, not being able to go to the stores, and, people not being able to go to work. It affected everybody worldwide. We know this shit. So it affected Wave 2, 3, and 4's distribution for Origins. So a lot of people had a hard time finding fucking Hordak and She-Ra and Triclops and Trapjaw and Orko. And it was a real fucking oh my god, where are these figures? Why can't we find them? Because it never showed up in America, kids. They're probably on some fucking shipping container somewhere at sea and nobody fucking knows. And, so, distribution's been weak, so, seeing the single peg figures hasn't been the greatest, but when it comes to, vehicles and the bigger stuff, it hasn't been a problem. So it's been usually a mixed bag when it comes to finding these guys in the wild, but where we are now is, especially for the past year, when it comes to, wave numbers, you got people that are waiting for waves 10 and 11 to show up, and 12 even, to show up at retail. You know what I mean? Snake Armor He-Man, Snake Armor Skeletor, the Snake Men, the rest of the Rulers of the Sun single peg figures. People haven't been seeing those figures. And there was a time where people were waiting for the fucking Roton to hit the shelf so we could find the Roton in the wild. Now it's to the point to where some Walmarts have gotten so many Rotons and nothing else that they got their Rotons on fucking clearance already for $7, which is fucking ridiculous because I grabbed mine when it was new and it was $35. And now you got this one particular Walmart with fucking overstock that they're selling shit for $7 to $9 on clearance prices, when technically it's still considered within the past 365 days new. So like the Road Time came out last year at this time. So it's fucking crazy. But like, you know, some of the Walmarts and Targets still have like Waves 7 and 8 figures. You know what I mean? Like you're still seeing Naked Stratos, Jitsu, the Sorceress, Buzz Off. You're still seeing those figures instead of new figures, and it's kind of ridiculous because it's like we got 2 Walmarts in our area, and when it comes to Origin shit, it's almost like non-existent anymore. It's like Walmart phased out the room it had for Masters of the Universe. So when I'm reading online that Walmart is going to be carrying the exclusive fucking Mossman figure, and I'm not seeing any Masters of the Universe anything in my one Walmart, it kind of makes me a little nervous that I'm not going to be seeing this Mossman in the wild. But that's all, you know, part of the fun, part of the hunt, part of the chase, you know what I mean, is, oh my god, I want that figure, am I ever going to see it? Oh, you know what I mean? So, as luck would have it, my wife was at work, and my wife happens to work away from our hometown. She works like an hour away. So when I was talking to my wife one day, I asked her if she would mind swinging by the Walmart up in her area and just see if they have a Mossman. And I sent her a picture of what she's looking for. And sure enough, she found this Mossman in the wild and brought him home. So I was finally able to check Mossman off my list and do a happy dance because now I don't have to worry about him. Only, since this is the only Mossman that I have, I don't plan on opening this particular Mossman figure. Now, if I come across another Mossman figure in the future, I will definitely be cracking open one of those Mossman figures and throwing that up for Patreon subscribers. But no, I got this. I finally got my hands on Mossman, and he comes in this sick fucking box, and I'm fortunate enough to still have him on an unpunched card, meaning that the little peg piece of cardboard that pops out is still intact for the complete packaging. But he's in a box. He's not carded on. He's not in a plastic bubble on a card. He's in this collector's box, and it says Collector's Edition, moss-like fur, smells like pine, modern posing for retro play. Now, before I get to the figure, I'm just going to talk about the packaging, because the packaging's really fucking sick. You know what I mean? You got dudes like Manuel Eduardo Carretas, and you got friggin' Axel Jimenez, you know what I mean? These guys just knocking out, like, dope-ass freaking designs and work, you know, when it comes to everything with Masters of the Universe and its, you know, retail presentation. It's just so fucking sick. So there's, like, so many types of images on this box. Like, the front image shows Mossman coming out of the jungle, and there's another wild creature that's on 2 legs watching from the background. Now, based on his body language, he looks like he's one of Mossman's homies. However, to me, the Motu collector, I don't know who that figure is. However, at one point, Super 7 was putting out some Masters of the Universe figures. And I know at one point they wound up putting out these 3 figures which were like just generic jobber figs, but they had like different monster heads. Like and to me, that's what that character reminds me of. Those are the vibes that he gives off, the generic one monster creature. And then the one side panel's just boring. It has foliage and plants. And then you turn it on the other side, and this is kind of cool. I believe, now I gotta put it up close to the camera so you can somewhat see it, but it's basically a giant brontosaurus, and he's standing on his hind legs, but in his stomach is a turret gun with He-Man sitting at the gun, like Han Solo and Luke Skywalker in the Millennium Falcon just firing this gun. And I believe that's Gigantosaurus. I could be wrong with his name, but basically in 1988, when Mattel was supposed to expand the lore and universe of Masters of the Universe, Mattel was going to do a spin-off. They were gonna level up the brand. So it was gonna go from Masters of the Universe to the Powers of Grayskull expansion line. And the Powers of Grayskull line was gonna focus on a back in the day pre-Eternia, where the three towers were going to be a focus instead of, less on Castle Grayskull and Snake Mountain, more on these three towers to tell this new story in this familiar world. So, like, the Snake Men were going to come into play and be main villains, and they were also going to be talking about, the old days of the evil horde and whatnot. So they were basically going to continue the brand, but it was going to be less about He-Man and Skeletor, and the new focus was going to be ancestor-like main characters. For example, Hero. Hero was going to be the new lead character in this Powers of Grayskull line. So, we were going to get, that's one of the reasons why the Eternia playset came out in 1986, as part of the Snake Men's introduction, because tying into the fact that the Snake Men got banished, but now they're back, the Powers of Grayskull is going to focus on a time in a world before the Snake Men got banished. So, they knew what they were doing, even though they were winging it the whole time. But now, over the years, they've spent the past 40 years building upon old ideas, refleshing out the brand, rebooting it to a degree, reestablishing canon and continuity, and it's just they've been fucking with the timelines, and now it's to the point where, like, everything today in the world is, when it comes to, like, movies and TV and shit, especially Marvel and whatnot, and DC, you got timelines, you got alternate realities, alternate dimensions, you know what I mean? And Masters of the Universe is no different, but with the vintage brand, unfortunately, it was the 1987 movie, and because of that movie bombing, that basically got Mattel to the point to where they were like, fuck it, we don't really need to continue with this brand, why don't we just put He-Man on the back burner and let it cool down for a couple of years, and we'll move on to other shit. So they never really got a chance to build and grow and fully introduce us to the Powers of Grayskull line, even though some of the items did get released in, like, Italy and Argentina and Spain and whatnot. None of it came out in the United States. Now this includes Laser Light He-Man, Laser Light Skeletor, Hero, a character named Eldor. Eldor was supposed to be one of those Eternian elders who came with a book of spells that was apparently the book of spells used to banish the Snake Men and drive the three towers into the ground back in the day. So with this reimagined yet familiar continuity timeline with Masters of the Universe Origins, they're able to give us the same setting, the story, the location, they're able to give us everything we love about Masters of the Universe, but like chess, they're just reorganizing some pieces. And one of those pieces that I feel has been reorganized is the character of Mossman. Because a lot of people have been bitching and complaining for the past 3 years of collecting these toys. Okay, why are we getting all these He-Man variants? Why are we getting these Rulers of the Sun figures? Why can't we get figures we want like Rio Blast and Mossman and Spikor? Where's the Slime Pit? You know what I mean? Everybody's been like crying and complaining because Mattel's putting out the figures, and a lot of people haven't been liking the way the distribution's been. And I will admit, a lot of the waves have been kind of hodgepodge to a degree. Like, you got Wave 1 with He-Man, Skeletor, Evil-Lyn, Teela, Man-at-Arms, fucking Beast-Man. You know what I mean? But when you got to Wave 2 was like Trapjaw, Man-E-Faces, Orko, Scareglow. So you're taking like 1982, 83 figures, but you're including a 1987 new character in the second wave of this Origins line. Then they get to Wave 3, and She-Ra has a figure available. And the reality is, they haven't even spent much time focusing on She-Ra. They haven't even really shown She-Ra in any of the freaking artwork and shit. It was like she was just like a throwaway figure. Let's just throw She-Ra in just because they know who She-Ra is. And yeah, so She-Ra's in Wave 3, and, you know, even Hordak got released in Wave 4, and they came out with a deluxe, the Hurricane Hordak, or no, not Buzzsaw Hordak it was. It was a Hordak that has the gold, the gold Buzzsaw in his chest. Like, we got 2 Hordak figures, and then they didn't even bother putting out another member of the Evil Horde until like over a year later. So it was really fucking weird. But the way they're building with this, you know, the reason they never put out Mossman last year or the year before that or the year before that is because it wasn't time for Mossman to be revealed. Because they knew that with the way Mossman's character bio has been expanded upon over the past 20 years, you know, he's a completely different character today than he originally was in the 80s when he first got introduced. Like, when he first got introduced in the vintage line in the 80s, right, Mossman was released at a time where, looking back, it felt like Mattel would always release characters in like waves, but always include characters that can be paired off because they have a similar play feature or action gimmick. You know what I mean? Like for example, you got Fisto. You know what I mean? You got Man-at-Arms' brother with his oversized metal hand, and then you have Jitsu, you know what I mean, with his oversized golden chopping hand. So they had oversized hands, and you know, that was incorporated with their action features and whatnot. But with like Mossman, you had Stinkor. Stinkor was an evil warrior that was a skunk, and he's another character that I'm going to be talking about in a future episode of Ian versus Daddybones. But Stinkor smelled like a skunk. The figure had an odor to it, because what they did was they mixed patchouli oil into the plastic to give the impression that he smelled like a skunk. So you were really smelling patchouli oil the whole fucking time with Stinkor. And with Mossman, you know, Mossman had the flocked fur, and Mossman smelled like pine. So, you know, he smelled like mom's pine sol, and he had a real strong aroma to him. So especially if he had both characters, you know what I mean? You were able to smell them like they were fucking magic markers or fucking scratch and sniff stickers in the 80s. Only the scent was way more overpowering. And that's another thing too. Like the Mossman figure was flocked, so he was fuzzy, he was green, and it felt like he was made of moss. And I always remember being that super cool with the figure, you know what I mean? Because even though flocking was not unusual to me at the time. Because to me, when I think of flocking, you know, not just when it comes to Mossman, I think of like, I don't know, old Christmas decorations, you know what I mean? You go to your grandma's house and she still has Christmas ornaments and whatnot from like 1940s and the 1950s, and you got like, you know what I mean? Like the original like boomer vintage Elf on the Shelf figures. And it wasn't Elf on the Shelf. It was that stupid Cupid doll face that they would like copy paste. And you know what I mean? The creepy Campbell's soup kid face that they like throw on Elf on the Shelf. You know, his Christmas hat would like be flocked with like, you know what I mean, like to make it look like red velvet or whatnot. You know what I mean? Even like Valentine's Day decorations were flocked to feel all fuzzy. You know what I mean? And you know, so I looked at Moss Man like that. So like it wasn't new to me. I've seen flocked merchandise items before in my life. But overall, as far as like being a character, you know, as part of Masters of the Universe, you know, he fit right in with everybody else. And it's like with his character backstory, like it just says Moss Man, heroic spy and master of camouflage. So when Moss Man was a new character and I received him as a birthday or a Christmas gift, I could have gotten him for Easter. I don't fucking remember exactly when I got my Moss Man figure as a kid. I just know I had him, and I always thought he was incredible, and he was another one of those figures that where the more I played with him, especially with my other figures, like it was easy to tell that the figures in Masters of the Universe had the same shared parts. You know what I mean? They all had the same, you know, bootleg for the most part. They all had the same basic arms. They had the same basic chest and the fuzzy pants mold, and you know, everything was shared parts for like, you know, a good 75% of the figure, minus the head and accessories and armor. But the more you played with it, the more you noticed, like, Moss Man's face and his head was basically just a green Beast Man head. Because they had, like, the same facial expression and mouth and whatnot. Kind of like Stinkor as the skunk character. Stinkor's head was basically just a remolded merman head. Because that's why both Merman and Stinkor kind of have like that cat-like appearance with their heads. But yeah, Moss Man reused Beast Man's head, and with the exception of like, you know, he didn't have like Beast Man and Stratos had like furry legs and whatnot, so it had like the detail of like fur and whatnot. But Moss Man being flocked, he just had the basic ass leg. But at the same time, he does have. It looks like he does have that Beast Man bare leg to a degree, because there is no boot molded plastic on his leg on the figure. And another thing I want to say too, I think's interesting, is inside this packaging, Moss Man comes with his original mace weapon that he had back in the day, but he also comes with this brown plastic molded spiked ball mace, which is actually the same weapon that came with the Rulers of the Sun Origins Pighead figure, only it's in brown instead of blue. And the other cool feature I think's great on this figure is Moss Man comes with a yellow and black version of Beast Man's armor that the Origins Beast Man figure comes with, and that's actually paying homage to a 1980s weapons and accessory pack that you were able to buy in case your armor broke for like Zodak, or your armor broke on Beastman, or you lost Beastman's whip, or you lost He-Man's power sword. You know what I mean? It was replacement weapons and armor. The only kick in the balls was everything was molded in a different color plastic than the accessory that you lost in the first place. So the Beastman replacement armor you got was yellow instead of red with the blue. It was yellow with black on it. But the thing is, I didn't realize, but apparently some kids would take the extra Beastman armor and they would throw it on their Moss Man figure, considering he basically, other than the furry pants and the yellow belt, he basically just looks like he's naked the whole fucking time. So putting that yellow extra Beastman armor on Mossman does look pretty dope. You know what I mean? It makes him look more ferocious and beastly. And speaking of looking more ferocious and beastly, this Mossman comes with an alternate head, which, like his basic head, is another reused Beastman head. Only this alternate Mossman head is the Lords of Power Red Beastman head. And that's based on the original Lords of Power Beastman head in the original, prototype Masters of the Universe. Before it was Masters of the Universe, it was called Lords of Power before Mattel pulled an audible and changed the name at the last minute. And, going from this head design to this head design was another last minute decision they made before they launched Masters of the Universe. So it's cool now we got 2 Mossman heads. And it is important to note that even though he does come with the alternate head, only the vintage Mossman head is flocked. The second head has no flocking on it whatsoever. But overall, in a nutshell, there's the deluxe Masters of the Universe Origins Beastman in his packaging. Now, going back to his packaging, like I said, that Gigantosaurus is on the side of the box that He-Man is riding, and no, He-Man's not riding. He's arming the cannon that's popped out of the stomach. Now, this dinosaur was supposed to come out in 1988 at some point. Never got the opportunity. Pictures of it was revealed and shown off in JCPenney catalogs and whatnot, but it never got released. Now, on the back of this Masters of this Mossman packaging is some beautiful, wonderful art that shows Mossman wearing his armor amongst the plants, and he's either being spotted or he's unseen and just spying on 2 unreleased Snakemen warriors who are searching for someone in the background. They're probably heard a noise and looking for Mossman, but these very well could be 2 upcoming Snakemen characters that get added to the Masters of the Universe line. The 3 Towers, Eternia, the Ultimate Battleground is shown in the background, and that's the thing. Going back real quick to the reestablished fleshing out of the character. When Mossman was first introduced, he smelled like pine and he could blend in with the plants. Wow. You know what I mean? It's hey, it's Aquaman. He swims and talks to fish. Wow. So you got that. So he was kind of boring at first. You know what I mean? But then they had the mini comic where they talked about Mossman, and when they talked about Mossman and the fact that he could blend in with plants, then the story kind of evolved into, well, if Mossman could blend in with plants, how do we know he's not around when we're talking to each other? How do we know he's not spying on us? How do we know we can trust Mossman? So I remember just reading that as a kid and just thinking it was a little unfair that they were untrustworthy of Mossman just because he could blend in with plants, and assume that just because he can do that, he's going to be everywhere and anywhere they are, as long as he can hear them through the plants, which he very well could be. But you know what I mean? Don't point fingers at somebody when you got 3 point back at yourself. And I just feel that was rude as fuck to do to Mossman in the very beginning. And also too, I believe he did make a few appearances in the Filmation cartoon, and it's the same thing. So it was he was always kind of I don't want to say goofy, but they kind of made him seem back in the day like he was dumber than he actually was. He was comic relief or whatnot, even though when you break it down, he's a really cool fucking character. And that's where I'm saying, over the years, you had Masters of the Universe in the vintage line, the Filmation cartoon, you know what I mean? I'm skipping over shit that I know he wasn't a part of. Then he got the 2000X Masters of the Universe line. And I believe Mossman got a figure in the 2000X line because it was simple for them just to freaking remold Beastman in green and call it a day. So I don't believe the 2000X Mossman figure was flocked. But I do know that during the Masters of the Universe Classics era, when it came time for them to make Mossman, they did very well make Mossman, just reuse the Beastman body to make Mossman. And the thing is, unlike the 80s vintage line, the Classics line had depending on the character, between the 16 to 30 points of articulation. So they had the movable joints on the figure. So this time it posed a challenge for them when it came to doing the flocking, because it was one of those type of things where I guess they never had to worry about flocking a jointed character before with, the levels of articulation and, the different joints. So for basically the Classics Mossman looks half cool, but it looks half ugly as fuck because he's only flocked like for example, if I'm Mossman, I would have the flocking on my forearms, but it would stop right before my elbow. And then my elbow joint is nothing but freaking naked green plastic, and then right where my freaking bicep starts, flocking until it reaches my shoulder. Then I got naked green bare plastic shoulder joint. You know what I mean? So he looked like he was fucking decaying plant matter. You know what I mean? Like, he looked cool, but it looked half ridiculous at the same time. And they even had like a version of Mossman in the Classics line. Well, he either had flocked ears or he didn't have flocked ears. But what I'm getting at is the lessons learned is they knew that they didn't do the greatest job with the Classics Mossman flocking. They learned from their mistakes with the Masters of the Universe Origins Mossman, because not only were they able to learn that they can flock the actual joints, but it's not gonna hinder the articulation. It's not gonna prevent the joints from moving the way they're supposed to. It's not gonna hold him back in any way, and it's not really gonna rub against each other as much. But then again, like it said, it's in a fucking box. It says collector's edition. And it's funny because it's a lot of people collecting this Masters of the Universe Origins line. Yes, for guys my age, we're trying to introduce it to our kids. And for some of us, we've seen our kids not treat their toys as well as we did. And I know that my Sadie has already broken a He-Man and a Skeletor of her own. So I'm definitely not giving Mossman to my kid to play with. You know what I mean? You don't need Mossman. You got He-Man and Skeletor, you're good. This one's for fucking dad. And that's the thing. I don't want to take him out of the box because I know how vintage flocked Mossmans and Panthers from the 80s, how some of them figures look today, where it's half the flocking's gone and half of it's stayed on, so it looks all scabby and fucking dying and shit. They look all scabby and shit and gross, and for me wondering if I was even gonna find this guy, I don't want to put him at risk at anything. So I kind of like him in the box the way he is. So he's gonna be going up on my shelf, unless I find another Mossman figure. And I got my people out there. So shout out real quick, Andy, Eric, Jim, Jack. Even my wife, Amber. Thank y'all guys very much for being my eyes and ears when y'all are in Target and Walmart and able to see something that I'm not able to see. And yeah, speaking of Andy real quick, shout out to Andy Header, because Andy Header was the one that actually grabbed me that Mossman figure. He actually found that Mossman figure 50% off at one of his Walmarts. And actually, I think it's his only Walmart. Or maybe it's his only Target in the area. Either way, I know one of the retail stores is like out of Andy's way and he only gets to go there so many times. And I know one day in particular he saw the Mossman figure, 50% off. He asked me if I was interested in it and I'm like, you know what? I don't really collect Masterverse figures, but I don't know if I'm going to find Mossman in the wild at this point. So, you know what? I might as well start collecting Masterverse figures. So, honestly, thanks to Andy Header grabbing me this Mossman figure for $13. Like, this was my first Masterverse figure, you know, and I wasn't interested in collecting Masterverse. This was the figure that made me say fuck it, because I grabbed it, looked in the back, and it's got the other figures, and it's like, there's only 3 other ones left to get in this first wave. It shouldn't be that bad. But I'm going to save him and talk about him for Patreon subscribers. So I'm going to open him up in a bonus video after I wrap up today's episode. And before I do, I just want to get back to Classics Origins Mossman, because like I said, with their rebooted adjustment of like the time scale, basically the way they reestablished Mossman is Mossman's not just a character that's around during the lives of He-Man and Teela and Man-at-Arms and Fisto and, you know, Clamp Champ and the homies. You know, Mossman reestablished has actually always been there. You know what I mean? And even when Masters of the Universe did a crossover with DC Comics where they put out a comic book that was called Injustice versus Masters of the Universe, you know, during that comic, Mossman and Swamp Thing fucking get into it. And I'm not much of a DC guy, but when I was flipping through that, I honestly thought that was fucking amazing, seeing Mossman and Swamp Thing like fight each other and shit. But looking back, the way Mattel and, you know, the children that grew up to become adults who now work for Mattel, who now have a hands-on helping mold this brand in this modern age, you know, backstories have been reestablished, fleshed out, rewritten. So basically, Mossman's not around today. Mossman was around yesterday. Mossman was around years ago. So it's been established, even in Masters of the Universe comics, you have the Masters of the Universe led by He-Man, but then you have the pre-Eternia Masters, which is the pre-Eternian back in the day Masters, where it was like Hero and King Grayskull and King Grayskull's wife, who was that era's version of the Sorceress, and Mossman was a part of that squad. So Mossman's a pre-Eternian master. Like, Mossman's been there forever over the years. So instead of being like, you know, an untrustworthy spy that he was labeled in the beginning, he wound up being this like wise men, shaman, you know what I mean, like Eternia Rafiki. You know what I mean? I mean, he's not a baboon, he's not a monkey and whatnot, but I'm just saying, like, Mossman has always been there amongst the trees, and even in, like, you know, Masters of the Universe Revelations, which I don't want to talk about much, because that's for that focus on that Mossman character, but let's just say, a lot of what I'm just saying now about him always being there is expanded on in Revelation, and it's pretty fucking awesome. But yeah, I'm super happy that I was able to add Mossman to my collection, and I do know from personal experience, during my journey of trying to get my own Mossman, as luck would have it, come to find out, like, the Friday that my wife grabbed me Mossman, over the course of the following week, he started showing up in our local Walmarts. So I did get word from some people that Mossman was available in the area, and I remember messaging my buddy Jim, hey, I found out Vestal Walmart's got two Mossman figures. If you're able to run down there and grab one. And sure enough, Jim was able to get a Mossman. So, you know what I mean? Collectors helping other collectors. I'm glad I was able to assist with the hat trick and send Jim over to Walmart to get his own Mossman figure. But yeah, guys, I'm gonna head out of here for the day. I got a bonus episode to film for the Patreon subscribers. But my name is Ian Daddybones. Thank you very much for watching Ian versus Daddybones. I got a bunch of stuff on deck for this month of September as I get ready to not only wait for Snake Mountain to drop, but by the time I do the next episode, I should have Eternia completely paid off, and that's going to be a fucking celebration in itself. But to everybody watching, thank you very much. I appreciate your support. And until next time, cheers, Pete!
Where will I be when I run out of luck? Get hit by a truck or get stuck on the railroad tracks. When shit goes amok and life starts to suck, you're stuck cause you never go. Where will I be when I run out of luck? Get hit by a truck or get stuck on the railroad tracks. When shit goes amok and life starts to suck, you're stuck cause you never go back.
You can't hide and you can't pretend, cause I'll punch you out right when the end ends. Some things you learn in the school you attend, but the things that I say you can't comprehend.
I ain't no hippie and I ain't no punk. I don't smoke crack and I don't do junk. I'll just sit down and smoke a fat bong, pull out my guitar and sing a fast song. There's your motherfucking American Idol, putting $2 a gallon down the gas hole. 10 million votes for the next asshole. I'll just put on my engineer's hat, sit back and relax while we speed down the tracks. I'll read the book just to spit out the facts.
Where will I be when I run out of luck? Get hit by a truck or get stuck on the railroad tracks. When shit goes amok and life starts to suck, you're stuck cause you never go back. Where will I be when I run out of luck? Get hit by a truck or get stuck on the railroad tracks. When shit goes amok and life starts to suck, you're stuck cause you never go back.
Where will I be when I run out of luck? Get hit by a truck or get stuck on the railroad tracks. When shit goes amok and life starts to suck, get stuck cause you never go. Where will I be when I run out of luck? Get hit by a truck or get stuck on the railroad tracks. When shit goes amok and life starts to suck, you're stuck cause you never go back.
Up your driveway all calm and collective, tripping balls like an underground detective. Needs new shit but my funds are running low. I spend it on weed, shrooms, beer and blow. Living life like a cartoon, just flipping the page as I'm staring down the barrel of a 12 gauge. Shotty to the body and it's got me open, shaking so bad I think my legs are broken. I'm choking on the smoke and coughing up the shot, waking up from a dream. These drugs are high. Chasing strychnine with pine and beer with whiskey. Sing a lullaby and I'm sorry you missed me.
You